Good afternoon. This is the JP Dinnell podcast Q&A exclusive with JP Dinnell and Lucas.
Hey, what's
up,
dude?
buddy? How are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I'm in full beard growth mode.
I like it.
Yeah, we just placed the order. You're familiar with Johnny Slicks?
Yeah,
Are you not?
yeah.
So I've been using.
Yeah,
you got me the
I'm like,
pomade. Yeah,
really?
Well, I just mean the guy.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
which is his name's not Johnny or Slicks, is it?
No.
Anyway, I've thought about reaching out to Mr. Slicks.
Oh, yeah?
Because I've been using the pomade
Yep.
that you got me and the body wash, which he was right about that the body wash is top tier.
Dude, it's awesome.
Yeah, my wife is a big fan.
Yeah.
So anywho, but with the beard growth stuff, he's got some of that, and now that we're gearing up for this beard challenge that has been issued, we got everything set up with Mama Lee, so you can go and donate to America's Mighty Warriors.
Mm-hmm.
Link will be in the show notes, and just put in the memo JP Dinnell podcast or JP Dinnell or Lucas's Goofy Beard, whatever you want to do.
Yep.
And we'll make sure if we raise $5,000, we'll get this bad boy shaved off, and I'll go baby face till the end of the year, which I'm a little nervous about because I don't remember how weak my chin actually is.
Interesting. And it's going to be during the cold season.
It will be during the cold season, right? So that's
be all right.
Yeah, I'll survive.
The other thing that we could,
I'm excited about getting back into, because I used to have to shave my face every day. I really enjoyed the little face shaving ritual that I had, because I've got the badger's hair brush and I've got the stuff that you gotta. Yep. Though that 5 minutes of my day just prepped me for absolutely everything. Part of me misses that.
It's a system and a routine.
Yeah.
You have your systems in place. It's part of your routine. And there is that nice aspect. I like, same thing. I like shaving in the morning.
Oh, man.
Do
you use the safety razor? I know we've talked about shaving before. Do you use a multi-blade razor, the safety razor? I've gone back old school. My shaving kit looks a lot like what my grandpa probably used in the 1940s.
Yeah, well, those aren't legal and TSA compliant for me.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Are regular razor heads TSA compliant right now?
I don't know. I don't play that game. I'm like, cool. I just have the mock whatever, or whoever, whatever brand it is. I don't know.
I went when I was in
whatever my wife gets in bulk from Costco.
Yeah, Harry's, I think is probably what it is. Because I went to. Because I even though I got the beard, I try to keep the neck trimmed up. And I just got back from preaching at youth camp.
Yeah.
I flew into Ohio. There was the place we're at, Cedarville University. There's nothing there outside of the Dollar General right across the street. And this place called Mom and Dad's Grill.
Nice.
Which was amazing. It was awesome. Oh, yeah, it was so good. They had, they're called tornadoes, but they're blizzards. You know what they are. But homemade ice cream is delightful. But yeah, so that was the old travel hack, though. You don't go with soap or anything like that. Then you just make the quick run to Dollar General and buy everything there versus having to pay $25 each way to check a bag so that you can take your razor and all that other junk.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't even travel with shaving cream. I just use the conditioner from the hotel.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You just lather up conditioner with a little bit of shampoo in there and lather up in your hands, put it on your face. It's perfect for shaving.
It's nice, yeah.
It is perfect for shaving. Yeah. So that's what I do.
Nice.
Anyways, what do we got for some Q's
all right, let's do some Q&As. I've got a table that I've created of Q&As. Do you want... we got top 10s here. Frustrations, desires, and fears. So we've got a table here that I've been accumulating some data.
Okay.
And we have 10 frustrations, desires, and fears that high-achieving leaders often experience when handling communication with employees. So I'd like for you to address some of these. You want me to just pick my favorite?
Sure.
Okay. One of the biggest fears that high-achieving leaders have when they're communicating with their employees is breach of confidence. So how, if you're in a leadership position, you've talked with somebody. I've actually come up against this very recently, where I asked somebody a question about something, and before I could compute what their answer was in order to try to help me make the decision that I needed to make, I'm getting phone calls and text messages from other people that are like, hey, are we doing this? Are we doing this? Are we doing this? And they were all things that I say some of them were pretty close to what we were actually going to do. Some of them were like way out of left field. It's like, where in the world did you get this information? And it's a breach of confidentiality. That's a tough one. How do you deal with the breach of confidentiality as a leader?
Well, I mean, you have to have the hard conversation and explain to them the problem that was created, the impact that it has to them and the team. You've got to find a way to take ownership over this because, you know, for me, if it's like someone's going to be like, well, if someone breaches your confidence, how do you take ownership over that? Well, the ownership I'm going to have is obviously I didn't have a good enough relationship. You didn't trust me enough. Yeah. Or I'm sorry, you didn't respect me enough. We didn't have a good enough relationship because there are things that I have been entrusted with that nobody knows about.
Yeah.
Literally nobody knows about. And that's with friends, that's from my spouse, from family members, from leaders in the military, leaders in business, you know.
You're a vault, which I really appreciate.
But there are times where I'll ask that person, like, okay, is this really something that I can't share with anybody, or can I use my discretion? I've actually said that to people, like, can I use my discretion, or is this act? Because I think a lot of people be like, you can't tell anybody this. I think people throw that out when it doesn't really need to be thrown out.
Yeah.
Or, you know, and I think what they're looking for is they're just trying to get some advice and guidance, and they're embarrassed of the situation.
Yeah.
Or they don't know the impact of if that information got out. And so that's why they're like, hey, you can't tell anybody because they still don't know what's happening. You know, they're still trying to work through the stuff themselves. Like,
sure.
So if I go to you and say, hey, Lucas, I have to ask you something, but you can't tell anybody. Most of the time, the reason why I would be doing that is because I don't have the answers, and I'm scared of what's going to be the actual impact. And so that's why I'm trying to mitigate like the controllables by saying, hey, you can't tell anybody that. But if you were to say, okay, hey, can I share this with discretion to help try to get some advice and or seek some other wisdom? I'd be like, for the most part, I'd be like, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
You know, and the key phrase there is use discretion. I'm
right.
not just like, hey guys, my buddy I'm not blasting on social media like and doing a poll like, hey, let me know what you think, or hey, what's your answers?
Yeah.
So I think it's a relationship problem initially. That's what I'm going to look at.
Okay.
And so for me, that's the easy way for me to find my connection to ownership over somebody breaching
confidentiality,
the confidentiality, the
right.
trust that I had with them. I'm like, well, I mean, okay. And then the other aspect is how well did you communicate that they should keep that confident? I've helped work, you know, people through these situations before, and they're like, well, they weren't supposed to say anything. And the other person's like, you never said anything. And then the other person's response was, well, it's just common sense. And you're like,
no such thing.
And then I'm sitting there in the middle going, hold on. Like, you have to be very clear. If you don't want somebody to share it, you have to be explicitly clear as like, hey, Lucas, like, no matter what, you can't tell anybody this. Here's why. Here's the impact. The reason why I'm telling you is because I can't figure out how to work through this.
Yeah.
If you can't figure out how to work through it, I don't need you going to anybody else. I need you to tell me that, and I will pick who I talk to about this.
Yeah.
I'm going to be very, very explicitly clear. And also, like, hey, breach of confidence, that goes in the back of my mind. I have friends that I know have shared things that I share with them in confidence because they were the only person that I told that info to. And other people said things, and I'm like, oh, that's unique. There's only one other person that knows this. And I've always been like that. That was part of like just something I guess I kind of knew to do, is like, that's how you know what you can trust with people and who you can trust, is you only give people certain pieces of info, and when it comes back, you know where your leak is.
Right.
And I'm not saying you should live your life and like, oh, everybody's like leaking your information. Like, for the most part, most humans don't even need to worry about this. This isn't an issue.
Yeah.
It's not a problem. However, if you're in a position where confident information is being shared, and or, you know, you're moving up the chain of command in an organization where there are confident conversations, like in the military, there's a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
That's why I'm still to my point where like even on my phone, like Amanda, we used to, like when we were having problems, she's like, well, your phone's, you have your password on your phone, you always put your phone face down. I'm like, yeah, what's the issue? And to her, she used to be like, well, you're trying to hide something. I'm like, you know my passwords.
Right.
Go dig. Go. You want me to, like I would just be like, hey, go. I don't care, And again, this is when we were having problems.
Sure.
And what it was is I wasn't having empathy for her for things that triggered previous issues from other relationships.
Yep.
And anybody that knows our story knows that we both caused problems at the beginning of our marriage to cause distrust. The beginning of a relationship and a marriage, we did things that caused distrust. And it's a classic, like, well, everything's good. We both forgive each other. You forget about the stupid things. You're like, wait, why is this still an issue? I did a lot of that.
Sure.
And so as we learned to communicate better, she would tell me, like, well, when you do this, it makes me feel like you're hiding something. I'm like, okay, well, I'm sorry. That's fair. That's how you feel. That's if you feel that way, I'm making you feel that way. So I had to change the way I was communicating. And Amanda's awesome. She has no problem having a hard conversation.
Yeah.
I am envious of her at times where she'll just be like, hey, and bring it up. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like we're doing this now.
Crap, we're talking about this right now. Yeah.
It's not like, and again, that's not meaning that we're fighting. Like it's just, she'll have the hard, she'll talk about the things that most people won't. And because she wants to solve the problems.
Yeah.
And so the reason why I said all that is it goes back to like I'm a protected person because of what I used to do, and I don't want people having access to my stuff.
Yeah.
And
do you have the privacy shield screen on your phone?
I used to. I got a new phone. I need to get it on there.
Yeah, because I do the same. As a pastor, I've got the privacy shield on my phone.
Yeah.
And then I took off all of the, the things like the text previews and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, I don't have any of that.
Yeah, because you never know like who's going to be sending you a message where they're heartbroken about something or something bad happened or whatever, that they're not ready for that to come out. And I don't know how many people have found out about stuff because they were shoulder surfing over somebody else and then blows everything wide open. Yeah.
So. And so I'm also like, when I'm in my office on Zoom calls, like nobody comes in there.
Yeah.
Unless I text Amanda like, hey, can you grab me water or
bring me some snacks?
Yeah, if I don't ask for
some of those German chocolate cake cookies.
German chocolate cake cookies. But if I don't ask for it, she won't come in there because she knows like to me that's a big thing. And I felt bad. Like Steven and his wife and his kids came over a couple weeks ago, and I was on some calls, and he knew that, and they were coming over to drop something off, and he was talking with Amanda, and he was like coming in the office to like give something to me, and he like comes in like super quiet, and I'm like, I hear the door, I'm like, that's weird. Why would somebody be coming in my office? And then I see like a little bit of a reflection of him in the like off of some like glass in the TV, and so I put my microphone on mute real quick, and I'm like but my hand was like out of the screen, so you couldn't tell. And like he looks, and I'm like out. I was like, hey, yeah. And then he just immediately goes and like out, and I felt bad, but this was like a legit call with the client that was like,
you gotta protect your business, man.
We were working through some confidence stuff, and some issues that they're dealing with.
Sure.
And afterwards, I felt bad. I felt bad then. And afterwards, I texted him like, hey, sorry, I explained it. And he goes, I felt like I was walking in my dad's office in high school on a work call because, there are times that, his dad. So to circle back to fully answer, I know we went down some rabbit holes from that. Sure. I was just explaining kind of my thought process. And, here's the deal. This is my perspective. This doesn't mean that this is the right way to handle it. The way that we teach at Echelon Front to have hard conversations is you have to identify the problem, the impact and the impact and consequences because of what was done. Take ownership and provide a solution.
100%.
That's what I'm going to do. Yeah. So it's having the hard conversation to address it and let them know like, hey, I really trusted you with this information. You breached that trust.
You butchered it.
Yeah. And I don't know if it was intentional or not. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. so that we can work through it. And then I'm going to, go back to the drawing board and like, okay, hey, what do we do moving forward?
Yeah.
If I have important information, what are the parameters in which I can share with you? Can I trust you? It's going to be hard, but can I? And I want to. How do we work back to it? And then just give them small little bits moving forward.
Yeah. Do you think that every relationship, no matter what it looks like, has a moment where you have to like make the choice to trust somebody because you're establishing what that line of breach of confidentiality looks like?
Say that one more time.
Do you think, and this is more of a personal question than a business question. Do you think that every relationship has a moment where you have to define what confidentiality looks like in that relationship?
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
They do, and I think that's something going back to like what you've been saying. Like we don't do a great job of communicating
we assume,
what that is, right?
We assume that's
and as
the
we
worst
build
thing.
a relationship with somebody, we start to trust them, and we're like, hey, you know what? This guy's actually pretty smart. He's given me a lot of insight, and like if just taking our friendship as a snapshot, that like the amount of information and the amount of just pouring into me and like my leadership that you've done, there are things that at the beginning of our relationship we didn't share with one another, and now where we're at now, like I don't feel like I have to say like, hey, don't tell this to anybody, or hey, this is or hide anything and talk in circles about, because that's one of the most complicated ways to do it. Let's say that there's a man, and this man has a business
asking for my friend, and you're like,
that kind of stuff. But there are you feeling those things out. So this is something that's in the fears column, and so I want to ask the same kind of question in another way. How do we overcome the fear that when we bring somebody into confidence, that they are going to breach that confidentiality? Because as a leader, bringing somebody into confidence it can be an intimidating, a scary kind of thing, especially as it relates to the business itself or certain projects that may be vital to what the future of the business looks like.
Yeah,
and that everybody may not have the vision for those kind of things yet. Like bringing somebody into confidence is a difficult thing. So how do we overcome that fear of bringing somebody into confidence?
Well, I think if you really look at it from a detached perspective in regards to like how bad can it actually get, we really realize it's not going to be as bad as we think.
Probably, yeah.
I would say the majority of the time.
Yeah, yeah. If looking back at things, we tend to make things bigger in our minds than what they really are.
Way bigger.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
And so now it's hey, am I wasting energy? And how much energy am I willing to waste? How much, whether it's through stress, worry, whatever, and that's a lot. It's energy.
Yeah,
we're wasting it, and we need to actually use it in a positive manner. So I think you need to do an assessment and just ask yourself, what's the worst thing that's going to happen if they breach this confidence? And is it really that bad? And to me, that goes back to, hey, just worry about the things that you can control.
Yeah.
And is it really that bad? And I think when we look at things and say, is it really that bad? We tend to find that it's not. It's typically not as bad as we think it is.
Yeah. So one of the things, and this has to do with confidentiality, but it's way out of left field. So just prep yourself. Right?
I like it.
Yep. So I'm almost, or let me rephrase. I'm gonna start all of this over. I'm on par for hitting my 60 books by the end of the year goal that I've got. So recently, though, this last swath of books that I've read is all about spies in World War II. And so I read about Josephine Baker, who was a black performer who was born in St. Louis and then became world renowned in France. She became a French citizen, and in her hospital room during Patton's Northern invasion, that's where the dead drops were happening in her hospital room, because people weren't surprised that generals and ambassadors from all over the world were wanting to see Josephine Baker. She's legit, just incredible. And then there were a couple of books about some other spies, but there's one in particular called Double Cross, which was about the double agents that MI5 used that were German agents that they turned that became spies for Germany, particularly around the D-Day invasion.
Okay.
What they found out was that their group of double agents became so prolific inside Germany that all of the information that Germany had on the D-Day invasions was only coming from spies that had already been turned by the Brits. That it's totally bizarre. Like, the story blows my mind. But that said, the planting of misinformation was one of the things that they used in order to try to figure out, like, hey, whose team are they really on?
Yeah.
That's an easy thing to do whenever you're trying to root out spies. That is not a healthy thing to do if you're in a business to try to plant misinformation.
You should not do that.
Right. So how do we, like, you mentioned, that this was something that you kind of did, is you would, like, tell somebody something in order to try to gain. Yeah. To see, like, okay, well, if this person is doing this, obviously I can't trust them with bigger things. Mm-hmm. Right. So what does the iteration look like of, like, okay, so I'm going to bring this person into my confidence. We'll start them with, a small project that's not, it's not top secret, but it's, it's at a certain level. We really don't want anybody in the office to know about it, where we're at yet. It's in development, kind of a thing. How do you do that? Because planting disinformation is obviously something that's going to lose you leadership capital. It's going to tear everything apart. It's great for spy thrillers, right? But, like, outside of that, it's not healthy.
Yeah. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because I want to be very clear. I was not, and I do not plant the wrong information.
Right. Yeah.
To reiterate what I was trying to communicate earlier is, I would only share certain things and or say things a certain way.
Right.
So if I shared something and said it a certain way and that was repeated, then I'm like, oh, I know that it came from so-and-so. And it's not even necessarily a bad thing, because I know most humans are going to share information that they've been told, hey, don't share this info.
Right.
And to me, it goes back to, like, oh, I didn't communicate how important it was. I didn't say, hey, here's the deal. I'm trusting you to not share this with anybody. And I know spouses have rules that we don't have secrets. If you're going to have to tell your spouse this, then I'm not sharing it with you. Mm-hmm. And there are things that my wife has had shared with her that she won't share with me when she's been helping out other people or talking through stuff. And here's the thing. I respect her not to even ask.
Yeah.
I don't say, hey, what were you guys talking about? I don't do that. And guess what my wife doesn't do?
The same thing. She doesn't she reciprocates that respect.
Yeah, we know that. And that's something that we talked about. Like, hey, if I'm having these conversations, don't ask.
Yeah.
Because the answer I'm going to give you is, I'm not telling you.
Yeah.
And I don't want us to have friction. Because at the end of the day, it's okay to hold on to things in confidence because someone's trusting you in that.
Yeah.
Now, there are levels to that in regards to, like, if this is something where somebody could get hurt or injured, or if it's
they're going to harm themselves or
others, or they've done something like illegal, and it's just like, hey, I did this. And it's like, hey, bud, like, I know you told me to say this in confidence, but I've got to call the police. Like, you just shared this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you committed this, like, atrocious crime. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not keeping that in confidence.
Right.
There's the whole moral and ethics thing, and we've gone outside that realm.
Yeah.
So, in the company thing, like you were talking about, obviously do not put out lies, do not put out the wrong information.
Because
you will lose leadership capital quick. And then people are going to be like, oh, he's manipulating us.
That's exactly right. I think people do, like, what you talked about, and bringing somebody into confidence and giving them information and seeing whether or not it gets spread around was never something that was malicious. I think so many people, when we look at bringing somebody into confidence, we immediately kind of revert to high school, where we're like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give them bad information. So whenever they get it, then people will know, like, I'll know who the mole is. And then they're going to realize that they can't trust him either. So it's going to work doubly. And it does work doubly in the fact that like now nobody has confidence in any of you at all. Like it backfires doubly versus like what you were talking about doing, which is, hey, you know what? Bring somebody into confidence slowly, make sure that they can handle things. And that, you know, if it's obvious that you've got a person that is keeping those things close to the vest, then you're good. Like keep going.
Yeah. And then I'm going to err on the side of communication. Like, hey, Lucas, I can only give you so much of this project that we're working on. As we complete more and, you know, you and your team have proven yourselves to be able to execute at a high level and we've gained a little more trust from our leadership, I'm going to be able to give you more.
Yeah.
This is what I'm giving you right now. Here's why. Here's what we're working on. And I'm just going to keep those lines of communication open and just make sure that I'm focusing on our relationship.
A breach of confidence is inevitable. Right?
It's going to happen.
It's going to happen. Your kid is going to tell your wife about the surprise party that you planned for her, about the gift that y'all went shopping for her birthday or whatever, right? Somebody in your church is going to, you know, say something that you supposedly, you know, that you told them in confidence and that they didn't get it. It's going to happen in your business.
It's going to happen amongst your business partners or 100%, friendships
like
and
your mentors, all of those people. Somebody along the way is going to break your trust. How we respond to it, I think, is one of the most important things we can figure out how to do, because that determines, you know, whether or not at the end of the day we're still leading the way that we need to, despite those relationships, dude. Yeah. I really appreciate you answering this question. Yeah. This is a rough one for me. I'm like in fear of this a lot, you know, with the chaplaincy stuff that I do. With the conversations that we have, because I mean, you know, whenever you're in an executive planning session, right, that there are a lot of ideas that get thrown around. That doesn't mean, one, that all of them are actionable, or that any of them will actually be something that ends up being part of the ultimate vision of the company or the organization. But if one person in that group, you know, somebody throws out a harebrained idea and they're like, oh, well, they said this and we're going to do this. It's like, nope. But that can cause months of relationship turmoil for the people in that organization. Yeah. Right on, dude.
Cool.
I really
don't breach confidence.
Yeah, dude. I love this. So one last question to kind of wrap up with. I mentioned earlier, you are a vault. And it's easy to look at that and be like, well, of course he is. He was a Navy SEAL, and you know, those guys, everything they do is clandestine, and their whole lives are secrets, and blah blah blah, whatever.
All lies.
Right? Yeah, right. You can't tell me about, you know, like going back to the stolen valor stuff, right? Like you can't. I can't tell you about my buds class. That's confidential, right? All of that nonsense. But there is among every community, right? There are people that have varying levels of clearances and all kinds of stuff, right? What do you do, or what do you suggest that people do to prove themselves trustworthy of people's confidence?
Well, you have to give people trust. You know, if I want you to trust me, I have to give you trust. And so if I'm trying to earn your trust to have confidence in me, then I'm going to have to show you that I trust you on different. And so if you're tasking me with something, I'm not going to push back. I'm going to show you like, hey, I have no problem doing this job because I trust you. The questions I ask, if I'm going to ask questions to get clarification, I'm going to make sure I'm very clear with that and say, hey, I trust you. I know that you tasked us to do this job for this reason. I just have a few questions to make sure that we're aligned on how you want me to execute this. Yeah. And those are the types of questions I'm going to ask. I'm not going to be pushing back. I'm not going to challenge you. And, you know, honestly, the best way to go out there and establish trust with your leadership is go out there and win. High performers get trust.
Yep.
Losers and complainers, they don't get a lot of trust. And here's the other thing you have to ask. Like, if you're constantly being defensive when people are trying to give you feedback and or just questioning and challenging things because it doesn't make sense to them. Like, if you're constantly being defensive, people around you aren't going to have a lot of trust in you.
Yeah.
And so that's another thing you have to think about is how do you project yourself And are you performing? If you're out there performing and getting stuff done, awesome. But if you always have an excuse and or a reason why you couldn't do something or why something wasn't done properly, and then you get defensive and then push back, then you're actually validating their lack of trust, because you're proving yourself not to be capable at a high level. And I'm not meaning that in a derogatory term. It just means you're not fully capable, or you're not capable at the level that you need to be a part of that organization and team to have that high level trust. That's why people micromanage. It's because they don't trust them. And people micromanage because they care.
Yeah.
They care about it being done the right way. And so there are times to micromanage, and there's a right way and a wrong way to do that.
Yep. And we've talked about that before on some other stuff,
sir.
man.
Yeah.
Dude, you're a wealth of information. I love these.
I wouldn't say that, but thank you. Cool. Well, hey, you guys heard Lucas talking about earlier. If you want to help raise money for Mama Lee, America's Mighty Warriors, that is a foundation that Debbie Lee started after her son Mark Lee was killed on our deployment to Iraq in 2006. America's Mighty Warriors is an incredible foundation. It's helped me get treatment, and a lot of my buddies get the treatment that they need, and sometimes the VA just does not cover it and or approve it. It's also a foundation that helps out family members and Gold Star families. So when we raise $5,000, Lucas is going to shave his beard, and it's going to be awesome. So if you guys want to do that, it's a great way to support the podcast. We appreciate everything that you guys do to support us. Everyone that's been, checking out Little Cattle Coats, a beef company I'm a part of, On the Path Printing, Jocko Fuel, Origin, Bruiser Arms. We just appreciate everything. If you guys are listening to this, I'm assuming you listen to our main episode, so I'm not going to go through the spiel on all the things that we normally do to close it out. If you're wondering what am I talking about, go check us out. Go check out a full episode and check out the end. It's all the companies and or organizations that I'm a part of that allow us to be able to do what we do with the podcast, and it's been awesome. So we appreciate you guys. So I hope you guys are having an awesome week. Keep getting after it. Thank you for the community that you guys have built here on YouTube. We appreciate the questions. We appreciate the comments. The interaction has been awesome. The more questions you put out, the more comments, the more interaction that you guys have with each other, the better it boosts the algorithms, which helps the podcast. So yeah. With that, Lucas, do you have anything?
Make sure you're on the lookout for those NCC shirts, baby. They're coming.
Yes, they are. Anyways, you guys have a great day. This has been the JP Dinnell podcast.